So coming to the stage next is Miss Megan Berry with Power to the People, which is another title I feel like is snatched out of the mid to late 90s. I like it. I do like it. I like it. Advocate community in product and engineering. Megan Berry has focused her career around building communities and social products. She is currently VP of Octane AI, a chatbot platform for online stores. Previously, she was VP of product at RebelMouse, cool company. Before that, she led community and marketing at social influence startup Klout, cool. After joining as their fourth employee, Megan graduated from Stanford Phi Beta Kappa. Now that's just bragging. But let's give it up for Megan Berry. Let's do it. Woo, come on.
Now this is a story all about how.
Awesome. I'm super excited to be here today because my first career and first passion was community management. And I went to the first CMX Summit when I was a community manager and loved it and was like, oh my God, why didn't something like this exist before? So I'm so glad to see that it's just growing stronger and stronger every year. And even more glad to see it's in Portland this year because I live here. So it was a short commute to come and chat. And oh shoot, I totally forgot to pick up the ticker thing. Sorry. Thank you so much. Now we've gotten the fail over with, so this will all be successful. Okay, so I wanted to talk about how community managers and product can work well together. Because in my experience being a community manager, I had some really bad experiences where I felt like I was trying to advocate for the community and the product manager was not listening, and it was very frustrating, and I really felt like it was bad for the company. And I also had some incredible experiences with a product manager who was collaborative and was listening. And between the two of these, the frustration and the positive ones, it influenced me to actually just switch and go into product management and become a VP product, which is what I am today. But I don't advise that for everyone because I think community is an incredible, incredible field. And I really want instead for product and community teams to work together better and to better understand each other. So that's why I wanted to come today and talk about bridging the gap of like, as I've moved into product, there's certain things that I thought were crazy before that I understand a little more on the other side. But I still believe that community is so integral to building a great product. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, from the product perspective, what I think the most important things that working closely with the community professional can bring to the table. There's so many skills about community management that are incredibly helpful for a company, but these I think are the most important from a product perspective. So one, experience with the best way to get feedback and how to interpret it. You guys are some of the best in the business about it, and actually most product people are very bad at it, strangely enough. So this is somewhere you can help them. An intuitive understanding of the community's needs and problems. You are so in tune with the community in general that like the things you say, you want to say them as being like just factual truth, but because this is just like part of your brain has become the community from working with it so much. And I understand that incredibly. And so I'm going to talk today about how to produce that so that product will listen. And then tactics for how to engage customers around just about anything. Again, things you guys are incredible about. What's stopping better collaboration? So one, I will say, I hope some of you have great relationships with your product managers. I still think these tactics I'm going to share are going to help make it better. But maybe you're not having a great relationship right now, and hopefully this will help too. So understanding each other's goals and metrics, I think that's where it starts and where I personally, when I was a community manager, did not put myself into the point of view of the product person enough in order to convince them of the points that I think were best for the company. So I'm going to share a few mindsets from the product perspective and how you can use them to convince them of things. I need to meet my key metrics this quarter. So really normal for any department, really, probably not groundbreaking, but product has certain metrics they need to hit in a quarter. Sometimes they're about things like signups. They may be feature releases that need to go out. But the first step to having a productive relationship with your product manager is understanding their goals and then using those goals to convince them of things. So signups definitely being an example. Retention. I do want to stop for a moment and mention that if you find out your product team's goals and they do not include retention in any way, whether by measuring churn or continued engagement or like, month over month activity, something, there's not a single retention metric in there. That's a good point to actually stop and have a conversation and see if you can get a retention metric included in product metrics. Because if the product team is only looking at metrics around new signups or other things and not around retention metrics, you're going to see them go head-to-head with community much more because they're simply not looking at the right metrics. Retention absolutely matters, and community tends to be more focused on that. Tend to be more focused on engagement and retention, and so you want to make sure that that's something that matters to the product team as well. Then there may be key behavior metrics. Famously, Facebook tries really hard to make sure you have, I think it's at least 7 friends, because if you have at least 7 friends, then you're much, much more likely to stick with Facebook and get value out of it. So there may be certain metrics like this that they're trying to push community users into, so you want to make sure you're aware of those as well. And again, the solution here is know these metrics and use them to your advantage as you're talking to product. So there's another mindset that might come up is, and you might have felt frustrated about, is customers don't know what they want. This is a typical sort of product mantra. Even it might go as far as to say this: customers come up with terrible product solutions. And sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not true. But the truth behind this, because this isn't true, but the truth behind this is that customer product solutions are a lot less important than customer needs and problems and why they want something. And so I'll give you a real example from the previous company where I was head of product. Is we had a product that it involved writing, so there was an idea of drafts and writing up drafts. And an account manager came to me and said, this client, super important client to us, really, really needs to have a delete all drafts button. And I was like, that seems crazy. Like, they're going to delete all their drafts, and then the next thing they're going to come and they're going to say, I accidentally deleted my draft. Can the engineers go undelete it? And like, we're just in a rabbit hole of horribleness. And so I asked for more information. I talked to them and found out why this ask was. And it turns out that it was because we had a bug that was causing duplicate drafts. So as different users went into the drafts, multiple drafts were being created, and it was a horrible mess. I would have wanted to delete all the drafts if I was them as well. But the real solution to the customer's problem was fixing the bug, not a delete all drafts button. And so that's just the kind of thing that product deals with on a day-to-day basis. So what you want to make sure you're sharing from the community is not necessarily just what they want. That's helpful. It is good to know what they want. But why they want it. What are the problems that these features entail? They want this to solve an issue or a need or some sort of desire. What is behind that? And I think as community managers, you do know this information, and sharing it with product will help bring that together. Let's look at another mentality. I can't build this for one person. When I was in community, a tactic I used all the time, it's really useful as a community manager, is storytelling. And taking the story of one person and using it as a metaphor to explain a larger idea. And it was just lost on the product people I was talking to, but very useful in talking to the community. So the main thing I would advise here is make your case based on stats. Doesn't mean you can't include a story or an example. Those are great ways to talk to humans, but product does need to focus on stats. And so if you put that into stats terms, you're going to see more success. So that's what I'm going to talk about here and show you some examples of how to do. So putting community knowledge into more product-friendly terms. I'm going to go through a few examples of different things you might want to convince product of, and then some advice of how to do them. So the first is when you think the community needs a new feature. Usually, if you're at this point, it's actually really freaking obvious the community needs the feature, and you don't know why you have to explain it, but sometimes you do. So let's go through it. So first, what key metric will it influence? Go back to those stats that you know the product manager is watching closely. And whatever that may be, signups, retention, churn, like reaching a certain key behavior metric, think which one this feature is going to influence and tie it to that. Tag customer requests. So for some of you, the community team includes support. For some, that may be a separate team, but hopefully you can work with them. The idea here is to make sure you're tagging feature requests, bug requests, and tagging them sort of on 2 layers. So one is that it is a bug or that it is a feature request, and the other layer is like the specific issue. And so you're able to see how many times feature requests come in and then how many times of these specific instances. Some of you may already be doing this. If so, awesome. Another way to get quantitative data is to use a survey. So even maybe you can't tag customer requests, maybe it's a totally separate team for customer support and you can't convince them to do it because it's a little more work. So using a survey is another great way to get that quantitative data to share. Essentially, your goal here is to take the soft data that you interact with every day and turn it into hard data. This is a real example of a feature we built at Octane AI. We do Facebook Messenger bots for e-commerce. So we have a feature that sends an abandoned cart message. Someone clicked add to cart, they didn't check out, sends them a message. Customer requests that kept coming in, we need the ability to allow our customers to add discounts into abandoned carts. Why? Adding discounts to abandoned carts increases conversions. Customers have used it with other vendors and know it works. Then tying it to business goals. This increases conversion for customers, which is a metric we care about as a company. And then we also think it's going to lower churn, so increase retention overall. Then the supporting evidence. So this example is gotten by using that tagging technique I talked about. So 23 customer support requests in the past 90 days. That represents 37% of feature requests through customer support channels. So that last bit really helps indicate the depth of the feature request because it's easy. A lot fewer people email customer support for something than people who want it, right? And that's intuitive. Everyone understands that. But when you're able to get that percentage of overall requests, it helps make that clear. Like of people who want something, 37% of them want this thing. Feels like maybe we should do something about it. And then this example goes also one step further, which you may or may not be able to get. But if you have customer churn feedback or feedback when users leave, you could look at that data and see how many of those people mention this. And that's another way to really highlight how important this feature would be. We did build this feature. Okay, so let's say maybe you don't have a specific goal in mind, you don't know what the feature is that needs to be built, but you're feeling frustrated that product doesn't listen enough, and that product should listen more to the community and just be more a part of it. One suggestion I have is to start a product advisory committee, something I did in the past and really helped bring product more involved with the community. Good products thrive on customer feedback, so this should be something that a product manager should be excited about if portrayed in the right light. What I would really recommend here is to get product involved early on and help them feel like this is partially their idea, like they're signing into what it's going to be, how many, like what is the time involvement on their side, and they're really part of this. And that's when this goes live in the company, they're also getting some sort of props, so to speak, so that you sort of incentivize them to be a part of it. And there's so many more tips around building product advisory committees. It would be a whole talk in of itself, but there are a lot of people probably in this room who could also give you advice on that. There's definitely a lot more to it, but it is a great way to bridge that gap. Let's say you want to be more involved in future launches. So is there a way you can help in the pre-post launch period? Product managers have checklists for launches. If community has a part in the checklist, you're going to know that you're involved in every single launch. Really easy example might be help documentation. You might already be doing this, but it's a great way to make sure you're in the know. Then get community feedback on their projects. So product managers want feedback on their projects, but they often don't know how to go about doing it or how to do it in the best possible way. And so if you can be that person for them that helps them with that process, you're going to be more involved in all of their decisions. So if you offer that and take that on, it's a great way to build that relationship. And then third suggestion on this, get access. Every product engineering team works on a ticketing system, Jira, Redmine, something like that. If you don't already have access, I would definitely recommend requesting access. And what you can do there is kind of just be a fly on the wall and see what's happening and get to know what's being prioritized. Because anytime a product manager decides not to do something, it's because they're doing something else. So as you get to know the trade-offs, you may be able to better help them make those decisions because you're acknowledging that it is a trade-off of priorities as opposed to just, why don't you do this thing? Let's say your issue's a little different. It's not about feature requests, but it's about bugs. Every time you post something to the community's just chiming back in of like, oh, but there's this issue, and like this doesn't work, and that doesn't work, and you're starting to feel frustrated with that. Common thing in startups, for sure, because that Facebook thing of like move fast and break things, it's not their motto anymore, even though it's still kind of true. But it's a common problem. So one thing I felt as a community manager is just not really understanding why we couldn't fix more things. Now that I've gone into product, I realize there's this real issue, which is that if bugs aren't reproducible, it's a black hole for an engineer. And what that means is I could assign a bug that's like users encounter this issue sometimes to an engineer, and they could spend even 2 weeks on it and not be able to figure it out because they're not sure what scenario it happens in. As a community manager, you definitely don't have time to try to solve every bug and figure out how to reproduce it. But maybe you can help figure out the process of customer support or QA working to reproduce these issues and putting more QA time into trying to figure out how to reproduce these bugs instead of just QAing features, because that's going to help get these bugs solved. So turn bugs into metrics. Similar to feature requests, turn bugs into metrics, and then that will be the key to get them solved. Here's an example bug escalation. So just like an example bug, when a customer tries to post a video to Facebook with a capture longer than 100 characters, it fails to post. Again, using that tagging request, we've gotten 47 reports around this bug. That's 56% of all bug reports we get. We know it is affecting many more users than report. Obviously, we should all know this, but it's good to say it. After reporting this bug, 9 of those customers ended up churning. You might not be able to get that additional piece of knowledge, but if you can, it's so powerful. And then this last bit was why I recommended working with QA of here's a screencast of the bug. It can be reproduced in these scenarios, and it's something that can be handed off to an engineer and solved hopefully quickly, but at least be very clear to them what their task is, which is huge. So hopefully that will lead to fewer bugs. Basically, I'm here today because good product people love great community insights, and good community people understand what the community needs. My goal is for product teams and community teams to better work together, because honestly, I think these two teams should be the closest teams in the company. You have the team talking to the customers, and then the team that is responsible for delivering the product they use. And so I hope I've helped a little bit, and feel free to continue the conversation with me on Twitter or email me as well. Thank you.